Hi guys, today I'm going to be reading from my book, My Little Book of Berlin by Hugh Waldock. And it's an account of my day trip to East Berlin on the 2nd of June 1988. It's about when I was a child and my mother and I went to visit my German exchange partner in Berlin and had a bit of a foray into the East German state, and it's just an account of that. I thought you might be interested in learning a little bit more about it. Day trip to East Berlin on the 2nd of June 1988. On the 2nd of June 1988, my mother and I boarded a Severin and Kuhn tour bus for a standard tour of East Berlin city centre, what was then the Russian sector of Berlin. I ran upstairs on the bus whilst Mum was supposed to be doing the passports. This proved dangerous, as they didn't realise that I was there, and Mum very nearly didn't register me downstairs as having been on the tour. Everyone was supposed to do this before we went over the border at the infamous Checkpoint Charlie, so I very nearly didn't return for another 18 months until the wall came down. That would have been a major diplomatic incident in those days. There were 3 stops on the standard tour: Mitte, Unter den Linden and the Pergamon Museum, the Russian War Memorial, and a communist cafe that took Deutschmarks and not the currency of the GDR, Ostmarks. This cafe was situated on the eastern side of the Havel Lake. I wasn't supposed to take photos. In fact, we were explicitly told not to, but I'm glad I did anyway. I got a superb shot of the eastern side of the Berlin Wall, the Brandenburg Gate, and border guards. Mum also got a great shot of what was to become the scene of one of the key protests in the East German Revolution of 1989, the rear of the East German Parliament building, the Palais der Republik. The East German Parliament building had a communist hammer and sickle emblem on the front, and was obviously a concrete block of Russian design with tinted windows. They could see you, and you couldn't see them. There was also a fine shot of communist pre-revolutionary Alexanderplatz, with its clean lines and street furniture. In 1989, people gathered around on the grass bank opposite the Palais der Republik to heckle Honecker and Gorbachev, who were inside celebrating 40 years of the GDR. Famously, the Stasi appeared from defensive tunnels near the bridge at the top of the picture and clubbed protesters over the head to stop them storming Parliament. By this stage, communism in Germany was failing, and what you saw in the window was everything there was in the store. I remember there being nothing whatsoever for sale on the shelves and in stock. We then went round the Pergamon Museum, which was on the Karl-Marx-Platz, now called Friedrichsplatz, in Mitte. The Pergamon Museum contains the Greek Pergamon and the gates to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. When we came out of the museum, I remember seeing that virtually every car was a Trabant. Trabants, or Trabbies as they were affectionately known, were a make of car in East Germany. In fact, the only one of 2 makes within the country. Everyone who could be supplied with one had one, but the waiting list was longer than a giant's arm, so you had to be quite influential to jump the queue if you wanted one. In East Germany, people very often had money, but they couldn't spend their money to get products or materials for their households because the supply was so poor. Communist philosophy did put an emphasis on them having love and respect for one another, however. This is another shot of the Trabbies. This time they all lined up together at traffic lights outside the cathedral. We then travelled to the outskirts of East Berlin to the Russian War Memorial and Cemetery. The Russians liked to show this off to Westerners as they built it out of the red marble left over from Hitler's Reichskanzlerei. I took a shot there with some very dodgy-looking Bond villain types in the foreground, who were either Stasi or KGB. As you can see, there are a lot of concrete paving blocks everywhere like they still have in Stalinist Pyongyang in North Korea. Moving on, this is an interesting cafe on the Havel Lake that took Western currency. It was on 2 tiers. All the communist hierarchy were allowed to sit down by the water next to the barbecues and heaters. We, as Westerners, were only allowed to sit on a raised platform in the centre of the restaurant, overlooking everyone else, but well away from them. I'd never experienced that sense of being confined and made a fuss of in the same way before. When I went to the loo, I felt a strange beckoning energy from one of the tables down by the water, as if they really wanted me to go and talk to them. Mum grabbed my hand and gave me the sternest talking to, one of the sternest I'd ever had. The couple by the water had children, and from then on it was my great ambition to play with children on the other side of the wall, and to have a little sister from the other side of the Iron Curtain that my parents never provided me with. That concludes my first and only visit to East Germany that I can remember properly. The border remained closed for another year.